Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to State of Play. Today on State of Play, a very exciting conversation about what's the future of the NDC, especially when it comes to who is partnering John Dramani Mahama going into the next election. Some have said it's a done deal, that the former president appears to have presented a repeat of his 2020 candidate. That is Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. Already, two groups came out to say that would be a terrible choice. They think he should rethink it. He just met the National Council of Elders, the old men within his party. He's now going to be meeting the executive committee, and they are in the meeting right now. They are sitting down waiting for him. And we understand the announcement will be made today. Ahead of that announcement, though, is Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman the right person to partner John Dramani Mahama if John Dramani Mahama wants to win the next election?
Well, Raymond, you've asked a very important question, and I'm sure that we have already, previously we had this conversation, and I had indicated that I felt that, John Mahama needed someone else. But hey, you always,
a position I have endorsed also.
Exactly. But well, he thinks that Nana Jane is the person to go. What I have learned, and I've made it public, that if nothing dramatic happens, many people don't understand that phrase. Unless something dramatic happens.
Yes.
That's just to say that there's a possibility. But look, it looks like Nana Jane. But you ask yourself a very simple question. So what's she bringing on board? And we've had that conversation. But I've heard recently something that makes sense. We can factor that also. I think that John Mahama is also thinking about, well, I went into the last election with this woman, and it didn't seem like she had a lot of baggage. It didn't seem that she had baggage where we have to be defending over the period. And so why don't I just repeat somebody whom I'm not going to be defending her record, and everything. If I go in for another person, I probably may be dealing with, government officials coming here and the possible prosecution. I do not know. He's not done this, he's done that. So let me just stick to with the person I know.
But is that not equally problematic? Does it not sound like, oh, well, she is not even anybody's focus. Nobody's targeted her. Probably they have dismissed her. They do not think she's actually a major force to reckon with. So why would you waste your time targeting somebody who's not going to give you the kind of gravitas that you want? You target people who already have votes, constituency, people who have influenced a huge section of society. Some have said the likes of Samira Bawumia gets even targeted more than Professor Nana Jane.
Exactly, and
but that's problematic in of itself.
But you see, you're very right. Even though Samira Bawumia gets targeted, she's able to convince people to vote for her husband's party. That's one thing you're looking at. This is the thing for me. Look, well, maybe we could be wrong. And I say maybe we could be wrong because when Bawumia came in 2008, it wasn't your Bawumia today. So maybe Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman has learnt a trick or two. But if it's the same...
I wanted to know that prior to her official announcement, her indications between the time the election was done and now, have you seen signs on the wall, her engagements? That will send you a signal that I am worried because I think the stakes, maybe somehow how we calculate the stakes in the election, they are different from how politicians in the election see it. I think if she is finally endorsed, the only communication here is that Mahama is going to election on his own merit, on his own credit. He is of the conviction that 100% he can win the election by himself. I hope you get my point.
I get you.
Is that overriding conviction that will make you go into the election with somebody like Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman? This question we asked, but nobody gets to be answering them. What is Professor Jane Opoku-Agyeman's constituency in this republic?
I don't know.
Yes.
Look,
let's be fair. If Winston is not in the know of that, it's very problematic. Perhaps then it's not as widespread as many people expect it to be. Because if you are counting 2% of the republic who understand and appreciate politics, he'll be one of them. But if he's not in the know of that, you ask yourself deeply, who else will know what Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman is bringing on board as a way of constituency? Which grouping can say if Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman does not contest or is not on the ballot, we will not vote for the NDC? Which large group in a way that will tilt elections one way or the other? That's also the question I'm asking myself. what is her track record when it comes to convincing sections of society, men, women, academics, whichever grouping, to vote in a particular direction? I am here to see any data backing that. Is there data that is in the bosom of the NDC and those making the decision today that the rest of us are not privy to?
You see,
or have they seen this election or concluded within their minds that it's foregone conclusion?
Well, you can't conclude any election. You can't conclude any election. But this is the point. And so, like, when I said that, I was talking about, I have indicated, and you ask, what's her constituency? The challenge here in this country is that we don't have a lot of exit polls. So we cannot say, for instance, that this percentage of women. So, for instance, I was looking at, the Republican primary, and I realized that 81% of those, who voted for Nikki Haley, for instance, who with a college degree say they wouldn't vote for Trump in one of the states. So you have that kind of result to say, okay, so this group of people don't like Donald Trump. So you realize that when it comes to a lot of persons with, college degrees or college education, they don't like Donald Trump. But unfortunately for us, we don't have these statistics. We don't have this data. So what we're going to do is now just to infer and say that, okay, so she was chosen. Why did the NDC choose Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman the last time? She was chosen, she went into the Central Region, and consistently, since 1992, there's always been somebody from the Central Region on the ticket of the NDC. But it is not all the time. Even when they had Achamel standing, they lost the election. So would the Central Region be Nana Jane's constituency? I am not sure. Would it then be female voters? I don't have data to support that. I do not get the inclination. I don't get a lot of females jumping on board her ticket and saying, yes, this is it. I have seen, some young females, Raymond, on Facebook, on social media, largely, talking about the fact that this is an indication that women are also getting onto the table. The numbers I see are not enough for me to reach a conclusion that that could be her constituency. I have in the past had women say, for instance, that, if any of the two major political parties selects a woman, I'm going to vote for her. You don't get that now with Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. So, her constituency, for me, is shaking. I cannot really pinpoint and say this is her constituency. But what I then would see, and what I'm gathering now, is that look at the persons who have been mentioned as possible running mates and ask if there is any of them that you think will be better than Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. So, for instance, if you say, okay, I want to go for a Zanetta Rollins, what is she going to bring on board that Nana Jane cannot bring on board? She is a politician, okay? Mm-hmm. So you'd expect to be able to convince more people than Nana Jane will do, to be very honest with you. Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, I have said it before, is not your politician. But of course, you always would want to give people benefit of the doubt. But she wasn't convincing in the 2020 elections. I don't know what will change. If anything doesn't change, then it means this election is not the best. Because look, by 2012, you had an idea that Bawumia had changed. Yeah. By 2011, you had an idea that Bawumia was beginning to change because whoever was working on Bawumia was consistently doing that. Mm-hmm. I have seen efforts at getting up for the Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman to speak, but you can always see this is guided speeches. That's true. And when it comes to politics, yes, it is true. You need to guide, your candidates. But your candidates must also get onto the stage and wow the crowd. How about charisma? Does she really? Because does not come across. No, she doesn't have charisma. Okay, of course, I don't know how many academics really. She doesn't have. She doesn't have. We talked up. I remember someone saying in those days that J. Kufuor didn't have charisma, but he won an election. Yeah. Professor Mills didn't have the kind of charisma Rollins had. In the Fourth Republic, Rollins is the most charismatic person. I'm just trying to pinpoint something that she has that actually tips the scale in her favor over the others. One thing she has, though, she's very smart, but she's not politically, her smartness could appeal to a certain group of people. Her smartness could appeal to a certain group of people, could appeal to certain elite group. Could, and I say could because, again, we're making the point, And we're doing this analysis because a lot of us don't have the data. We don't have
This is
it
not
in
the first time we've had somebody who's a professor on our
Yes, we had Professor Mills.
Mills, yes.
Eventually, he won the election. But of course, we all know what happened around that time. We all know the challenges that the NPP had in itself, and even the NPP's candidate had at the time. He was contesting Professor Mills. But again, I am saying that she could appeal to a certain elite group. If she does appeal to that elite group, and you are the NDC, a party seen as a Marxist party, then you would say, okay, bingo.
Or balance the scale.
Or balance the scale. But again, today, the NPP that is seen as an elitist party is becoming more Marxist than the NDC.
That's true.
So which is which? Where do you go? So maybe the NDC has done their own research and are of the belief that with Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, they have the best bet. But also you made a point. I've heard people within the NDC say John Mahama on his own can win this election. So you get the feeling that what the NDC is doing is just to meet a constitutional requirement. But in meeting a constitutional requirement, one, and I've had some of the, in conversations with a young, some of the close circles of John Mahama, they've said that, no, if we don't choose a woman, we will have to explain a lot, and we don't want that kind of problem. This is it. Until Professor Mills repeated John Mahama after the 2011 primaries, and that was quickly done, the NDC had always gone with different candidates.
Yeah.
Rollins, we know what happened between him and Akar, and so he comes in with Professor Mills. Professor Mills goes in with Martin Abidu. He changes Martin Abidu, comes with Mohamed Mumuni. He changes him too, and comes with John Mahama. So I am saying that until Professor Mills repeated John Mahama, then John Mahama also did same. So you can see. So John Mahama chooses Kwesi Bekoe and Mr. Arthur. But then they won election. And so it's okay when you bring the person back. So I am surprised. Professor Mills showed something that when the NDC, when we don't win election, we change you.
Yeah.
But, John Mahama comes in and he's trying to change that. And he's going with the good old professor. What I see, based on the belief that the NDC believes they can win this election on John Mahama's own, John Mahama on his own can win this election. It means that they then do not want a running mate who will be a distraction. So they then do not want a running mate who's going to be making all the negative headlines. As in, you don't want a running mate that tomorrow you hear that there's an audit going on and you're scared what's going to happen.
So take rather from Dan R to if it's not going to maintain the currency.
Yeah, don't take from us.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're putting somebody on who may not add enough, but of course won't take anything away from the ticket. And so in Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, you have somebody who may not bring enough, but would also not take anything away from you. Why? Is somebody going to manufacture new evidence against her today and say she did so many things wrong in the past?
As what? Vice Chancellor, as Education Minister. I get your point. Yeah, it was a bit of a bland role that she played off.
Yeah.
There was nothing overwhelming about her roles in this particular capacity. I'm just wondering, so let's just postulate beyond John Dramani Mahama. Assuming he wins the next election, and of course he has a term to be in office, what then happens in the second term?
There's also a school of thought that has suggested that one of the reasons John Mahama would want to go with Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman is the fact that he doesn't want to give anybody head start into who succeeds him. And so the feeling is that... He has
no idea who he wants to succeed
him. So the idea is that let the party decide who will succeed him. So he wouldn't
But is that not as problematic as choosing one to actually combat an election 4 years into the year?
Well, this is the point, really. You're very right. Ordinarily, you would want somebody who can succeed you.
Yes, or somebody who's actually been practicing or is being in the know for a while.
Because if he's successful in this election, then it means that the 8-year cycle is the order of the day.
That's true.
It would take a longer time to break, or it would take something dramatic to break the 8-year cycle. And so on that note, you probably, you'll be thinking, why don't I get somebody who can actually continue, at least do another term?
Yeah.
But this is the point.
So that we start telling people that this is the NDC's first term.
Yes.
And that's their second term.
Yes.
So, if we tell them that, that means please give us another 8 years, like we gave the previous government.
Yes, but...
It may sound reasonable to you, but it will heavily depend on who is actually leading the fight.
But this is the point now. Now, in Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, the feeling is that they both would go. But I say, she may not
it's
go.
politics. People will go into the office and now start believing that why not me?
And
why am I also deprived for being president?
This is what could actually happen. the NDC, if successful in this election, in 2020, can actually decide that let us be the party that has Ghana's first female president. And that will be history in the making. And a lot of people could jump onto that, ship and let history happen. Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman will be 77 by then. Mm-hmm. Yes. And Akufo-Addo turns 80 in a few years. So it's possible. I have actually heard people say, why not? If she becomes vice president, she must become presidential candidate. So that whole argument that, I don't want to give anybody a head start, maybe
may equally be problematic. Because merely by putting her on the slot, she has a head start.
She has a head start. And what could happen is that then she, if she decides to be president, which I think she will, if the NDC wins.
If you are one step to the presidency,
you might as well to be president.
Just put yourself
so you
just go enjoy the queue from the back.
No. And so this is actually what could happen. But that is where the problems may start for the NDC.
Yes.
Because, if they're going to go through an election, what will be Professor Nana Jane's base? And this is where the problem is. So if she's interested in the presidency, fine. But if she's not, and she starts late, for instance, and there's an attempt to get her to win, it's going to create a problem within the NDC. But, with all those who are around here, I am sure that if she's, selected today, you will be told of how she's willing to take over after John Dramani Mahama.
That's true, because
and once you hear
power
that,
play.
And once
when
you hear
there's resources around, people will be willing to.
And once you hear that, you would see the kind of agreement that would start even today in the NDC before they get anywhere close. So, all of these things are in there, but hey, I don't know. I think that so one of the things running through John Mahama's mind is that if you don't add anything, don't take anything from us. And so let's go with her. I'm told that there were others who tried to actually prevent that from happening. Even today, there were people who
tried last minute,
with
the hope that he will change his mind.
Yes,
but it's beginning to say. Of course, he has not announced the woman yet. Mm-hmm. We are hoping that would happen pretty soon, because we understand that there is a meeting to do that right away. They've entered into that meeting. They are within the circles, and maybe they'll come out to announce to us, most likely Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. I am just still wondering within my heart whether or not this is not a huge gamble. This is not, because you see, even for John Dramani Mahama, there's a limited number of times he can contest after being president one term, and the party people will not start raising questions about whether or not you should be in the position to contest again. So this is a very critical election, where you are contesting with Bawumia, who is making incursions in your area. So the very places that you seem to have gotten a lot. So today, John Mahama may be sharing votes with Bawumia up north. Certainly in the voter region, he will have an upper hand. But in the other areas, like the Ashanti and the southern part, the central region is swing. And the problem with the central region is that you may have a candidate from there, but they'll still vote against you. And it happened to Mills.
Yeah, it happened to Mills.
There's no certainty,
Raymond, you see,
that merely having a candidate from the central region guarantees you any form of election.
This is where the NDC should actually adopt the 2008 strategy that they used. They had a three-way campaign. Jerry John Rawlings, Professor Mills, and John Mahama. Mm-hmm. Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman should not be touring the whole country.
Okay, well, maybe.
That should not be the strategy. She doesn't have to tour the whole country. She should focus central, western, north, and Brong-Ahafo.
Okay.
You get the point? And the old Brong-Ahafo. Try to win votes in these areas. Try as much as possible to get into, what do you call it? Even the Ashanti region. Get your children, the Opoku-Agyemans, to also go and campaign for you. Mm-hmm. It's politics after all. Let them go to their families and tell them, this is our mother. This is, who's coming to represent the NDC. Go and campaign. And then leave John Mahama to campaign in the north, in the south, because he's the presidential candidate. Mm-hmm. But as John Mahama campaigns in the north, he will spend more time in the north. You need the likes of Ewuadako and Opon Fosu to be stationed in the Ashanti region campaigning consistently.
That's true.
Because if they don't do that, they will come back in 2024 with December and be crying.
Yeah, because, it's not a done deal.
No.
Nobody can wish away election. And maybe, I don't know the kind of estimations and calculations politicians do, but to remove an incumbent government rooted in the belief that they can break the 8, doing everything possible to make that happen. With a candidate like Mahmoud Bawumia, who is, let's not also dismiss that, a running mate. And depending on the kind of person you have chosen for the NDC, a more strategic decision may be taken by the NPP.
Of course,
to choose somebody who really will be besting the NDC's candidate at all times.
I mean, I was actually told that because part of the reason Afenyo Marking was selected is because the NPP co-wind of the NDC's choice of Nana Jane, and they felt that how about, so the NDC has Nana Jane, they have Ato Forson, all from the central region, get the majority leader from the central region to go and face them in the central region. And every decision the NPP has made in this year is election based.
Yes, right from the beginning.
It's election based.
Pushing for reshuffle.
It's election based.
Basically, everything that they are pushing.
It's election based, and so that's where, if you are the NDC, you should be concerned. Asidun Ketia should this time around be stationed in the BA, the Bono, Ahafo, and
Lordina Mahama.
Yes, Lordina Mahama, they should be campaigning there. If you don't do that, and the likes of Prosper Bani, Edward Dua Jaho, Modestus, what's this? Dana Budakpi and co should be campaigning in the Volta region. If they leave anything to chance, Professor Joshua Alabi must campaign in the Greater Accra region. And you would see that after the NPP selects his running mate, wherever the running mate may come from, you would see that Dr. Bawumia will do a bit of campaign in the north. He may not spend a lot of time in the north. He will spend more time in the Ashanti region, even though the NPP may choose a candidate from the Ashanti region, because he also would actually must associate with the Ashanti region. You have seen him actually doing that, going to churches there and all of that. 2024 will be a different election.
Now, it will be very interesting, mindful of the dynamics.
Yeah.
Who should the NPP choose to better be the equivalent, or to best Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman at her own game?
Well, I mean, the NPP certainly would have to choose somebody from the south here, one of the Akan groups.
Shouldn't necessarily be Asante.
I mean, I have made my point.
But there's also choose from the central, so that there is a head-on collision.
No. They don't have to.
They don't have to.
They don't have to, because if they were able to beat the NDC in the central region in the last election,
without necessarily having the candidate from there.
It tells you you don't have to. Now, because the NPP's fortunes are in the Ashanti region, and if they get just 76% of the votes in the Ashanti region, the elections is difficult for the NDC.
Yeah.
Once they get that, the elections are difficult for the NDC.
The NPP.
So yes, once the NPP gets that in Ashanti region, so you expect the NPP to choose a candidate from the Ashanti region, because if you look at the data, once the NPP gets 76% of votes in the Ashanti region, the elections are becoming difficult for the NDC. So get somebody from the Ashanti region. At least in the last 4 elections, you've not had a candidate from the Ashanti region on the ticket of the NPP.
That's true.
It's been Akufo-Addo, who's from the Eastern region. So get a candidate from the Ashanti region to partner Dr. Bawumia. Let him campaign so much in the Ashanti region. Let him go into, move from the Ashanti region, get into Western North and come into Western region. Let him go also into the Eastern region. Let him go into the Ahafo regions and let Bawumia be focused on the North.
Basically the Akan areas.
The Akan areas. So let him focus on the Akan areas. Let Bawumia be in the North. And then he would come into Greater Accra too. You have some of the
You keep saying him. You're expecting the NPP to choose a man.
Oh, but I don't know what they are going to do. unless something dramatic
happens. Okay.
They're going to
now that's the major caveat in the Republic now.
Yeah, something dramatic.
But it appears something dramatic is less likely to happen
today
when it comes to the NDC.
No, it wouldn't.
Well, we are told that John Dramani Mahama has entered the meeting, and they are preparing to now have the final conversations, and there will be an unveiling. Many believe that it is Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman who is likely to be repeated as a running mate. But how do you think the supporters of Togbe Afede will feel?
Well, I'm not sure that...
In the last few days and weeks, many have purported that it is time voters retake their pride of place in the NDC. What was the last time you put a candidate from the Volta region on the slate? Past runnings anyway.
But I'm sure
it was time to bring back voters to the center of the party. And the very distinguished chief, who really has a long history in finance and other areas, is the one that people say would easily be willing to resign and actually capture the heights of this place.
Togbe loves chieftains.
Yes.
He loves his
You don't think he will leave the place?
I am not sure Togbe will do that. I've seen the statement. I've seen the statement that says is prepared to serve his country in any
Yes.
capacity.
In any capacity.
In any capacity, yes. That
Yeah.
actually would add to the suspicion that
He might be willing
to do so.
But would he have been a better person compared to Prof?
Well, at least you get him the voter votes.
He will get them the voter vote. But is that in doubt now? I thought voter vote. What back
The NPP has been increasing their percentage.
That's true.
So
That's
you
true.
want to reduce the NPP's percentage in the voter region, and that's one of the things the NDC should also be focused on. If you don't reduce, and you see, the NPP over the period, one of the things a lot of people haven't realized is that the NPP over the period has been increasing in the NDC strongholds. Okay, they've been increasing in the strongholds of the NDC. The NDC tried a bit in the Ashanti region in the 2020 elections, but they've been increasing in the NDC's strongholds. So once you improve in your opponent's stronghold, you're making elections very difficult for that person. And so, anytime, let's see what happens. Anytime the NDC, Professor Mills lost the Central region on 2 occasions. He came back to win it. I don't know what's going to happen this time around. Let's see what happens.
You don't play chess, right?
No, I don't.
Yeah. I would have asked you which move is Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. There are various moves in chess. Is it a masterful one? Is it what we mostly call a king's move, or this is the queen's move, or is one of the pawn's moves? I've been thinking about it in terms of what I'll not lie to you, would have preferred the different candidates. I felt ordinarily the decision to keep on Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman wouldn't be the very best, because I did not think, like many NDC people really appear to be thinking, there's going to be a straight fight, a direct win, and there's not going to be any major contest. I believe that our dynamics always makes it crazy. At least if for nothing at all, whenever the NPP had won elections, they won with a bigger margin, post Rawlings, than the NDC.
Yeah.
So when they are losing to, you do not expect them to lose with a huge margin, which therefore means that you need something bigger than what you have done before to be able to keep them out of this particular election, all things being equal. So I really did not feel that there has been maintaining Prof is the magic wand or the abracadabra that's required to make the massive change. But it appears that is what the people within the NDC believe is the best thing to do. We need to see how the reaction from the NPP is going to be like. We need also to see how that's going to engineer a new front for the NPP. At least they don't have to change their, what they call it, papers, right? Yes. Okay. So we need to wrap up, but we are hearing terrible news.
Sad news coming in.
We are hearing very terrible news.
Member of Parliament for Ejisu and
yes.
Deputy Finance Minister, Dr. John Kuma, has passed on.
There is something I do when people I know pass on. I go back to the last message. Our last message, he was showing me something he was doing in his constituency. He was telling me about a project. Projects, he says it's time to tackle Ejisu community roads in a sustainable manner. You know, Ejisu and Jabin, my mother's hometown, shares a boundary. And indeed, it used to be together, Ejisu Jabin constituency. It used to be Ejisu Jabin, even as a, what they call it, municipality. Anyway, he was telling me that they've actually, together at Club 100 in the area, with so good contractors, secure an asphaltic plant so that they can do the roads in that community. He's a fine man. I mean, he's going into politics. He can engage really well. It is a very devastating news to have him leave us at this time. And I said, pretty okay. So our first thoughts are with the family. It must certainly be a terrible, terrible time.
I mean, I'm just checking, and I see that his last seen is yesterday at 11 a.m.
Oh, okay.
On WhatsApp.
Wow. It is terrible. It's not very best at all.
May his soul rest in peace.
Yes, may his soul rest in peace. Pretty sad note to end today's State of Play. Catch us next week.